Thanks for staying with us. It's still iBrand Daybreak, and we're still reviewing some of the top stories that made our national dailies this morning. Just before that commercial break, we talked about the sad news from various motor accidents from Lagos to Abuja, which claimed the lives of 22 people, according to the Punch paper, with over 12 people also hospitalized. As I said, before the break, the advocacy remains, safe driving, especially during the rainy seasons. People should be mindful of how they drive. We know quite well that some accidents are seemingly, unavoidable, probably, brake failure or any mechanical failure, what have you. But we can't also dispute the fact that some of these crashes are as a result of reckless driving. What do you make of that news? It's a sad one.
It is, and as you've said, this is something that could have been avoided, especially if you see that the fact that they said that the vehicle was on high speed.
High speed, exactly.
And so it means that it was as a result of the carelessness of the driver. So sometimes, and during rainy season, the roads are slippery. You want to be extra careful. You don't want to be at neck-breaking speed. You shouldn't even drive at neck-breaking speed at any time to start with. But in a time where you know that the roads are slippery and you know that the way things are, everyone is rushing, you don't know. Really, I really do not. Sometimes I'm wondering, where is everyone rushing to? Some patience sometimes would prevent some accident that happened on the road. And now lives have been lost. It was said that about 19 people were burned to death. And you're wondering, really, this could have been avoided, could have been prevented too. Sometimes this is as a result of, truck loaded with petrol, with fuel. And then eventually, even the drivers of these trucks are not extra careful. They have these numbers on but it really does not work. It doesn't work. Every time you see them on neck-breaking speed, some of them are even the trouble. They are the ones looking for trouble on the road. You are driving a huge truck and you're running. For what? You're already driving an articulated vehicle that shouldn't be on any speed whatsoever. You should drive carefully.
Some of them are not well trained.
Especially when you're carrying those kind of content, you want to be extra careful. You're not even considering your own life, because eventually when the fire breaks out, many times even the drivers are not free. They are not, without injuries. Sometimes they even lose their lives. So you talk about training now. Sometimes they are not even trained. How do you put someone in that kind of precarious situation or precarious position without training? And some of them do not even understand what it means to drive safely. They don't understand the fact that there are other road users that you should be mindful of. They are sometimes they're even on drugs.
Quickly to chip in, there's even a difference between knowing how to drive trucks and trailers and what have you than your salon cars and what. So there's that notion that, I can drive, and then you just think you can drive any form of vehicle. No, it doesn't work that way. That's why there are different driver's licenses for those who drive the salon car and trucks and trailers and all. But not everyone understands that. There's also the place of the maintenance of such trucks and trailers and what have you. Majority of them are in a very, very deplorable state. They are barely serviced on a periodic basis, and that explains why you often hear of brake failure. Why is it always the trucks and the trailers and what have you that always have those instances? We're not saying the salon cars do not have that, or your SUVs, but you hear more of the brake failures with these trucks than those ones. So I think we need to do more as a people, as much as we're advocating that people should be mindful of how they make good use of the road in terms of driving safely and all of that, especially during the rainy season. I think the companies that have these trucks should also ensure that they train their drivers well, and they ensure that their vehicles are also well maintained. I think that's the way to go in terms of curbing or reducing to the barest minimum the rate of accidents we have on our roads.
Basically, it's just about being mindful of other road users. You're not the only one on the road.
Still talking about the Punch, there's something interesting.
There's a big story here. Federal government granting 16 trillion naira waiver to Dangote, Honeywell, and others. These are big companies that you should expect that they should even pay more. If you're going to grant waivers, it should be to some maybe SMEs and these small companies, not to these big dogs.
I know the way I'll come here, it will look like an attack, but I think it's wrong. Oftentimes in Senate climes, one of the reasons you have extreme divides, like your Democrats, your conservatives, or your liberals and what have you, is that there's an extreme, belief in different ideologies of how to go about these things. This is similar to what Republicans will do in the United States in terms of granting tax reliefs to, big corporations. But I think it's wrong, really, by the federal government. As the stand first read that, okay, it's good for the economy, but at the same time, it's discriminatory and all of that. The question you start with is, these guys you are giving 16 trillion tax reliefs. Were they paying their fair share of taxes to start with? We know how well these things happen. Again, I say it all the time. You do not make $1 trillion or $1 billion. You take it. You do not. I'm saying that categorically. You do not make $1 billion. You take it. And taking it will mean that you evade taxes. You do not pay your fair share. I mean, yes, it looks like an attack on the 1% of the 1% or the 1% as it were, but it is what it is. Now, we're not even going into, the whole Marxism thing, but it is the truth. The average Nigerian is paying more taxes than probably the big guns.
And we're even talking about widening the tax
net, exactly. More people
and now you're granting relief to people who should even be billed more.
Exactly. So here's what I think. I think it's a wrong decision or a wrong policy by the federal government to go about this. I know, yes, they want to mention CSRs and all of that these big corporations, embark on in terms of corporate social responsibility.
That's voluntary.
But that's voluntary.
Nothing to do
exactly.
with what they should do.
That's one. Then two, when you look at it, if we're saying we're widening the tax net, are you going to require that those who earn a minimum wage of 30,000 according to the federal government for federal workers, or those who barely even earn up to 1.2 million in terms of net, are they the ones to pay more taxes than those who earn or post billions of naira within a quarter or hundreds of billions within a half? We hear of all these banks. So bank, posted 86 billion naira profits in the first quarter of the year and all of that. Those are the folks that you should go to pay their fair share of the taxes.
Well, I don't know the logic behind this tax relief granted these companies, because we've heard it said over time that these companies are able to grow, are able to thrive because of things like this.
Exactly.
If you grant the same thing, the same privilege
to
all of these other companies, because there was a time, for instance, when the borders were shut, some of these companies had some form of, arrangement with the federal government where they were able to. Forex issues, they have some form of leverage with the federal government, and they're able to do businesses, run their businesses without any form of embargo. The same embargo placed on SMEs, on all these other companies, blue chip companies, who are not able to do their businesses, run their businesses with some form of, what's it called now? This relief that are granted these other companies. And now it's looking like the rich are getting richer, and then the poor are getting poorer.
Exactly, and that's why I think we're getting it wrong. Again, I do not subscribe to the trickle-down economics of the far right. I think it's ridiculous. We have to grade from the bottom all the way to the top. The notion that you grant, tax reliefs to the big corporations, and along the way it trickles down to impact on the employees and what have you, is ridiculous at its very best. Personally, that's what I subscribe to. I think that it is wrong to go, this route in terms of giving tax reliefs and concessions to these big corporations. It's pay as you earn. They should be able to pay their fair share of taxes based on their earnings. You shouldn't require more from the average Nigerian that is basically, keep trying to keep his or her head afloat by requiring him or her to pay more taxes. So the fact that they are getting tax reliefs or concessions is a bit worrisome for me. I do not think that the big corporations should be the ones to get the tax relief. I think at this point, it should be your MSMEs that should get those tax reliefs, because one, they are the ones who are, employing the average Nigerians. They are the ones who are trying to keep the economy afloat. I say it all the time. The big corporations are not the ones, as the backbone of the economy. It has to be the SMEs. They are the backbone of the economy. When you put it on a larger scale, you look at how well they fare in terms of keeping everyone employed and all. They are the ones calling the shots.
We can do all the big cranes and shoutings here. The truth is, there are a lot of political undertones to
definitely,
all of this.
Definitely.
It's not just about the fact that, oh, they're granting them tax relief. There are a lot of political leanings and undertones that have to do with it. And so we can only do all of the shoutings, all of the, you know, clamorings, but in the end, they know what they're up to. Apparently. Especially as the elections are drawing close.
They do. And that's why I said earlier that you do not make $1 billion. You take it. And that's where it's ridiculous. You take it as a result of, as I said, tax evasion, you know, monopolistic government policies that benefits these classes of the members of the 1% class, you know, among others. That's the way they make or take their $1 billion in this sense, and rather than make it. So for the average Nigerian who is trying to make a living, they should be the ones to get tax reliefs, especially at this time where we have a high inflation rate, unemployment rate, and all of that. Not the 1%. I think it's actually wrong, really.
It is, but of course, there's little to what we can do. We can only keep talking. We'd hope that the federal government would reconsider and, of course, do the right thing, especially as it concerns the Nigerian business owners and not just these big wigs who already have all the, you know, funds and all they need, you know, to run the economy. 16 trillion naira.
Do a whole lot. Money. How much is that?
ASU is asking for 1.2 trillion naira. And of course, there are even some people from some quarters saying that 1.2 trillion naira should no longer hold water.
Exactly.
Because if you look at the inflation rate, the forex crisis, how much is the dollar, or rather how much is the naira to the dollar right now. And so they're saying that the federal government and ASU, or rather ASU, should go back to the drawing table with the federal government, looking at the fact that everything has changed. The, you know, value of the naira back then, so it should even be more. But how feasible is that? Right now, they've not even been able to meet with the 200 billion naira per year for the next 6 years to pay the 1.2 trillion naira. And now you're saying that they should go back to the drawing table to increase that amount.
That's where it gets more ridiculous, because when ASU begins to hear stories like this, they begin to question, like, what exactly is the federal government doing? Remember, the president is meant to, submit to the National Assembly the appropriation bill for next year, which is about 19.57 trillion naira. So if you have 16 trillion naira as tax reliefs, compared to 19 trillion,
and
what's the difference?
And we're funding that with about 12 trillion naira debts.
You understand? So
it means that we're not even serious. We don't even have the revenue to fund that budget, and yet we're granting tax relief.
Exactly. It doesn't just add up.
It's sad. And talking about ASU, you know, this NANS, National Association of Nigerian Students, have vowed to take the protest to the airport. Saying that, okay, it looks like this
blocking the expressway, highways, and
isn't really working, because, you know, most of you can just fly. The next day after they did the protest on Tuesday last week, we saw Atiku in Ibadan. You know, so it means that it really is not affecting the elite. It's just affecting the common man. And so they're saying right now it's time to take it to the airport, where you would not be able to fly, you would not be able to carry out your daily activities, and so that way maybe you would begin to get the drill. But if you look at all of this, in the end, now the police is saying that they are going to intensify security.
They will.
And it's not just the police,
everyone will be around.
What's it called, the soldiers,
everyone,
army,
armed forces,
everyone. Yes, so I feel that the NANS, they need to now sheath their sword and begin to maybe re-strategize, because if you look at all of this, we don't want a repeat of what happened at Lekki Tollgate. We want them to be extra careful. You'd want to live to fight another day. So
you know the issue is certain governments parastatals or public facilities are seemingly out of bound, and the airport is one of them. Now you look at it. Yes, we've had instances where protests are taken to highways, expressways, and the government is just a bit cool or lenient, as it were. But when it gets to certain areas, certain public facilities, it's almost like, oh no, now you're passing your boundary. Exactly. So it's not just the police that will be there. You would expect that the members of the armed forces, from your soldiers to maybe NSC,
they already said
they'll be there on ground. And what that will mean is there's every tendency, based on precedents, that we could have one or two gunshots, and that's where the fear would now lie. That we do not want violence, we do not want a bloody confrontation, and all of that. Remember, again, the armed forces denied that they were not at Lekki Tollgate. At some point they said they were there, and they said they didn't shoot. They said they shot. It was a blank. But blanks. We've heard all of those things. So we do not want a repeat. I understand the place of Nance in all of this, that if we take one of the airports and, you know, we lay siege, that sends a signal. Again, it would also raise the question, when over 200 terrorists stormed the Kaduna International Airport, where were the armed forces? Although some would also play the devil's advocate and say, oh, they didn't get a warning that, you know, terrorists would invade the airport.
Which is absolutely untrue.
Untrue, you know, in that sense. But here's what I think. I think if Nance are going to go there, it has to be orderly and ensure that, you know, there's no confrontation to stoke the tension already.
Well, you see that orderly that you're saying, I don't think it's possible because, no, they would be orderly. I feel that they would be orderly, but
can they keep
look at
cool?
what happened. No, I'm even talking about the fact that whether you're orderly or not, the police, the tone of the police, the tone of the armed forces isn't even friendly. So I'd like it to get were they violent.
That's why I said.
So I don't think it's a function of whether they are orderly or not. It's a case of maybe them going back to re-strategize and maybe picketing the National Assembly, state assemblies, and, you know, getting the lawmakers, those who are representing them at the houses, to feel the pain, the brunt of the situation.
How many lawmakers go back to their constituencies for regular town hall meetings?
So the point here is that you're just it's not as if in the end maybe what you do would make them to do the right thing, but at least you're letting your grievances know. For instance, going to the airport would not also change anything in the end, but it would disrupt some people's daily activities, and eventually, hopefully, if it doesn't lead to the loss of lives, maybe they would now get to say, let's go back to meeting with ASO and looking at ways to resolve these issues.
Again, that's because it will affect the 1%. Remember, during the height of...
yeah, the 1% are the ones who called the shots.
Exactly, that's the point. Remember, during the height of the, you know, NSAS, there was a virtual meeting where some of the big wigs within the 1%, you know, hosted a Zoom meeting with some of the influential celebrities that are part of that NSAS movement. You had Elumelu, you had Otedola in that Zoom meeting. You know, there was Dangote there was Whiskey, and a handful of them trying to see how they could quell it. And that's because, I mean, blocking the Lekki Tollway had already affected business, and they knew how much they were losing within that period. So they won't want this to happen because they know how influential or how important, you know, aviation is to their business as well, in terms of flying for meetings and all of that. You know, they know the impact. So it's all about the 1%. It's all about the greed of the 1% here and trying to protect their interest. Let's hope once again that the government finally realizes it is for the people and not for the lobbyists or the 1%.
Well, we hope they do the right thing, especially as it concerns the Nigerian students who are tired, should be tired of staying at home. We'll take a break now. When we come back, more talk. Don't go anywhere.